what you would always tell us was that was the best moment of your career because you then became the Pine Tar guy.
Right. Before that, it was the 80 playoffs when I had hemorrhoids. I went to a proctologist. We were in New York, and I told our trainer, Mickey Cobb and Paul McGann, and I go, God, I've got something wrong with me, Got a pain down below. And next thing you know, they look at it and they go, oh my God, you got to go to the doctor. So they said, you got really bad hemorrhoids. And so we go to a doctor in Philadelphia. This is 2 days, the day before the World Series. Tell you, it was one of the funniest cartoons I've ever seen in my life. In the proctologist's office. It was like a photo taken from inside, and like on the door, proctologist was backwards. Because it was a glass door.
Got it.
And it said proctologist. And when you walk in, it would be right, but when you're looking at it, it's backwards. And so you're sitting there, I'm sitting there waiting to get in, and I'm looking at the wall, just all this stuff. And there was a picture, that picture. There were no couches. It was like everybody was in the subway, and they were holding on to The room was packed, and everybody's just standing here like this. There was no couches to sit on. I started laughing so hard. So the proctologist says, how old are you? And I said, 27. And he says, what's your diet? And I said, yeah, not good. Well, what do you, what's your schedule? All these questions. And have you been under any stress lately? And I go, yeah, I just tried to hit 400, and we just beat the Yankees, and now I'm playing in my first World Series game tomorrow. And to be honest with you, I'm scared to death right now. And he says, well, you got a bad diet. You've been under a lot of stress. You don't take care of yourself. You're a perfect candidate. But the hemorrhoids were that's what I was known as everywhere I went after that series.
This is Moose's podcast, George. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, man.
I'm just helping Moose out. I'm not the guy that's doing this. This is Moose's podcast.
Well, it's good to see you guys. How was the softball game? Did you play?
Fun. First time we got to be on the other side of it. Got to go to the event last night.
How was that? I've never gone to that.
It was a blast.
Really?
They raised $3.9 million.
That's incredible.
Unbelievable. They're up to $25 million in total of what they raised for Children's Mercy. Wow. Unreal, huh?
Sheryl Crow sang.
She's really good friends with a friend of mine here. So she's been in town a lot. But
right. It's amazing how many people, when you get outside of Kansas City, how many people you'll see in New York and they're like, hey, I'm from Missouri, I'm from Kansas, and they're all Royals fans. It's way bigger than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we get into something right now? So everyone, obviously, the story with you in Vegas when you had the buddy that was a chef and there was a YouTube
he wasn't
video.
My buddy. He was the maitre d' or the whatever.
Well, he's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Can you tell that one? Because I know it was on YouTube and got taken off and people loved it.
Well, I was there with the guy, Larry Stewart, and you guys don't remember the name Larry Stewart, but you might remember him, the Secret Santa guy. He'd give out $100,000 a year in $100 bills.
I mean, that works.
And I'd go out with him, and he would he knew the look of the needy. And he was homeless at one time. And he went to a restaurant, and he's from Mississippi. And he had breakfast, and he was sleeping in his car. And he got up, and he said, oh, God, I don't have my wallet. I'll come back and pay you later. And some guy threw a $20 bill on the ground, and he said, hey, I think that fell out of your pocket. And he picked it up and paid for it. Next thing you know, Larry hits it big, and he never forgot that story. So I would go out with him once in a while here in town, and you'd go to a Walmart, you'd go to a CVS store in the downtown area, and he would see the look in people's eyes. And it was always around Christmas time. And he'd walk up and give them $100, give them $200, give them $500. And they would just go crazy. So we were out in Vegas, and I was staying at the Bellagio, and he was at the Mirage, because I was going to play in a golf tournament. I went over to the Mirage Hotel, and we were eating in Kokomo's, and the maitre d' or the chef came out and said, Larry, good to see you. I got these fresh crab legs just flown in from Alaska. Oh, you're going to love these things. And man, I love crab, and I love lobster, and I love shrimp. I love oysters. I love clams. I love all that stuff. Well, when you get a bad shellfish, it can do some bad shit to you. You know what I mean? So we're gambling, and it's about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got to go back to my hotel. I got to tee off at 10. And I start walking through the lobby, and all of a sudden my stomach starts doing this stuff, you know. Take a few more steps, and I'm going, oh my God, I can't move. I'm frozen. If I move, I'm going to lose 10 pounds right here. It's one of those things. And all of a sudden, my stomach relaxes a little bit. Thank God I was wearing dark jeans, not light ones, but I was wearing dark jeans. And all of a sudden, I took one step, and I got to stop. And then I couldn't stop. I just started walking real fast, and I swear to God, I crapped my pants all the way to the 6-block walk. Every time I took a step, shit would come out. It was the damnedest thing I ever seen. Then I couldn't control it, and I started shitting my pants. So I called Larry. I get in front of the Bellagio, and I'm watching the fountains. I said, Larry, you won't believe what happened. I'm sicker than a dog. And Larry was a rather big guy, and so he puts a pair of his pants in a bag, and he gets a towel for me. He goes in and scopes up. You take the escalator up, and I didn't know exactly where the bathroom was going in the side door, so he goes scouts it out for me, and then he comes back down, and I get on the escalator, and he pretends like he dropped something so nobody would get on right behind me. So there's about half an escalator, and so... and so I go in the bathroom, and he gets the towel wet, throws it over. I take everything off, clean up, put his pants on, roll them up, khakis and barefoot. My shoes, I couldn't wear my shoes. Just left everything in the bathroom. And I get in the elevator, and the guy says, hey, how's your night going? I said, not very good.
Better nights in Vegas.
It's been a tough night. It's been a really tough night. Wearing size 42 khakis rolled up, barefoot. Oh God, it was.
What a story.
Yeah, so George told that story in spring training, and
I was telling to because one of the guys, Scott Walters, remember him?
Yeah. Well, he was before me, but I knew who he was.
Yeah, and he was telling me that he pooped his pants. And so, I said, I got a story for you. And I was wired that day, and the guy's it's stretching. I don't think the camera's on or anything, and the guy's halfway, 200 yards away, and he's got me on. Well, he tapes the whole thing, and then about 2 months later, he gets fired. He goes in and steals that tape.
Really?
Steals the tape and puts it on YouTube.
I didn't know it went down like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was really one of the first YouTube videos that kind of like went viral, right? Where everybody was looking at it.
It did go viral.
So George would always come to spring training, always come to Instructs. Moose has got me dumbed up now, George, because yesterday he's like, this is Haas doing the podcast. He's fucking talking with his hands. He's going, George and this and George and that.
Today,
so I'm trying not to talk with my hands. But what was so cool about Kansas City was guys like yourself, Mayberry, you guys always came back, and you guys were like adamant about having influence on our team. You guys made sure that you even said it yourself. You're like, listen, Kansas City hasn't won since 1985. I'm fucking sick and tired of hearing about it. I want you guys to win.
Right.
And what was so cool about what you guys did, especially you, is now being newly retired, living a pretty cool life, nowhere near as cool as your life, but to understand that you came back in 2013 to be the hitting coach for us. Moose and I just talk about now how cool that was, and how when we're younger, we don't really realize what you were actually doing and what you were sacrificing. But the appreciation now of knowing what you did do to come back and be our hitting coach, unbelievable. And I think Moose said it best. These guys were asking why, like, why do you think George did it? He loved us, yeah, but George is just Kansas City. Like, you are Kansas City.
Well, I believe you, I had no intention of doing it. I get a call one night from Dayton. Hey, we lost again 2-1 tonight. God, I really would appreciate it if he'd be the hitting coach. I said, Dayton, that's never going to happen. The next night, Ned Yost called. They lost 2-1 again. The next night, they lose 3-2. Dayton calls again. The next night, Ned Yost calls. The next night, David Glass called. When David Glass calls and asks you to do something, you do it. He's the owner of the team.
Yes, boss man.
Absolutely.
And then Dayton and I talked the next day, and my wife was in Chicago shopping with a bunch of her girlfriends, and I talked to her every night. So I said, I got another call from Dayton. They lost again 2-1. Yeah, they lost 2-1. She said, why don't you just do it? I said, I don't want to do it. And then finally I said, you know what? Can I make an impact? I don't know. I've never been a hitting coach before. And there's that old saying, those that can't do, those that can do, those that can't teach. Tell me a good hitting coach that was a good player. There's not many. My favorite hitting coach of all time, Charlie Lau, 210 lifetime hitter. Walt Riniak was a good hitting coach, supposedly. I don't think he ever played the big leagues. We have 3 hitting coaches now in Kansas City. None of them ever played in the big leagues. No. But they're pretty good teachers.
Yep.
And Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters of all time. No, terrible manager, terrible hitting coach. And Ted's one of my favorite people on earth. You know, one of my heroes.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, Dayton, I'll try it for a month. And I lasted 2. In those 2 months, we went to Cleveland 3 times. How does that come up with it? Hey, let's go to Boston 3 times. Let's go to Boston 3 times.
Chicago,
You know,
at
let's
least.
go to LA 3 times.
Not Cleveland.
Yeah, not Cleveland. You know?
So you didn't look at the schedule before you told Mr. Glass you were taking a job.
So what I'm curious about, after what George just said, what was it like for you guys to be coached by one of the best?
Oh, they didn't like it at all. They didn't like it at all.
No, that's not true.
How many times did I tell you? I don't understand why every swing you take in batting practice, you take your top hand off and you hit line drives and home runs, and then when a game starts, you leave it on and you hit ground balls. Why don't we practice the way we play? And then I'd go to Alex Gordo. I don't understand in BP why you leave both hands on, and then the game starts, you take one off. It doesn't make frickin' sense to me. I'm sorry. You know? And then one day when Moose hit a line drive to the center fielder and he in the dugout, he throws his helmet, he comes and sits at the end of the dugout, he gets a towel, and he's just going crazy. And I'm at the other end of the dugout. I go, Pete, he's 0 for 1, big deal. So I walk over and I go, Mike, you did your job. You hit the ball hard. That's all we ask, hit the ball hard. The more times you hit the ball hard, the higher your average is going to be. Don't be mad when you've done your job. Fuck you. Okay, fine.
Not that easy for me, George. It was hard. No, I remember we have so many great stories in those 2 months that we were fortunate enough to have you as a hitting coach. But you would always take me out, walk me around the field before every game, trying to calm my mental side of the game down, which was crazy. With the amount of passion and joy and love you played with, I seem to have played that way, but maybe a little bit too much result-oriented. And that's where, like, it was pretty cool to have one of the greatest hitters of all time walking you around the field, talking to you, getting into your head. And I don't think I would have lasted as long as I did without those talks and all that shit that we went
I'd go
through.
up to him every day. I'd introduce myself. I am George Brett.
Hall of Famer.
He'd go, no, I'd never said that. My dad always said, if you have to tell people how good you are, you're not very fucking good. I like that. You know, I never write any stats when I sign that. And so I'm just say, can you write?
On that
Well, I
note,
don't like doing that, you know?
Yeah.
on that note, can you tell the story of when I got drafted and you called me?
Oh, that is a good one.
It's like,
Yeah.
This one's epic.
What are you talking
So,
about, Pops?
okay, what was I talking about before that? We were talking about, because I want to finish what I was going to say.
The mental side, or like how.
I would walk up to
introduce
you
me.
every day. Hi, I'm George Brett. He'd say, I'm Mike Moustakas. I said, be the best player Mike Moustakas can be today. Don't be anybody else. Be the best player you can be. I say that every day to Bobby Wood. I say it every time I see Miguel Garcia, who I think's one hell of a player.
Oh, yeah. Swing.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Oh, yeah.
I just love that guy.
He's got it's.
But I say it every day to him. Spring training, give him a hug. Be the best player you can be. Don't be anybody else, but be yourself. Be the best player you can be. And I started that with you that year in 2013, when you were struggling.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you were hitting like 180, I think, when I came over. And you were trying to get to 220 in 2 games. That's impossible.
Yep.
You dig a hole that deep. I don't know how many at-bats you had, 200 at-bats, 220 at-bats.
We were down there.
Yeah, and you dig a big enough hole, it's going to take a while to fill that hole up. And he was trying to fill it up in a week. You just got to baby steps. 1 for 3, 2 for 4.
Get to 180.
1 for 3.
Get to 190. Get to 200.
Exactly.
Climb up.
But you can't go from 180 to 220. That's not going to happen. So when Moose gets drafted, I usually, talk to the guys. Never have a tough time signing him. And so I said, well, let me call him. Who was the general manager then? Dayton?
It was Dayton.
Dayton?
Yeah, it was Dayton. I was Dayton's first pick.
Yeah, I said, let me call him. Let me get his number. So I got his number. I called him. I'm talking to him. I'm going, Mike, what are you going to miss the whole season? And then you're going to get to the big leagues a year later, and you're going to retire a year later, and you're going to do it over $200,000 or $300,000. When you can play 15, 16 years, and by then you'll be making $15 million. So you're going to sacrifice $200,000 or $300,000 as an 18-year-old kid for another $15 to $20 million at age 35, 36. Does that make sense? No. So he says, I got a meeting with Scott Boras today. And I said, well, look, I think you're crazy. I think you're going to have a great career. And if I was you, I'd sign now. I told Alex Gordon the same thing. And sure enough, he says, well, we got a meeting with Scott at 3. I said, okay, I'll call you after a meeting. So I call up his house, and no one answers. Well, everybody had caller ID then, right?
Yeah.
And so they see it's a 913 number. That's my area code. So I call again, no answer. Call again, no answer. So I call up a buddy of mine, Jimmy Obradovich, who I went kindergarten through high school with, lives in Manhattan Beach. And he played 10 years in the NFL, played on national championship team at USC with Hayden and McKay and those guys. And I said, Jimmy, do me a favor, call this number and just ask for Tom. And they'll probably say wrong number. So sure enough, he calls the number. It's a 213 number, calling 714 or whatever you were. And so all of a sudden they pick it up on the second ring. He goes, is Tom there? Oh, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. He said they picked it up on the second ring. I call 913, nothing.
That's on you.
That's on you, buddy. I told you, don't talk to anybody, especially him.
I was like, George.
Especially him.
Scott, George Brett just called me and told me to fucking sign. I'm signing.
I have no choice what to do.
0.
Do not talk to that guy.
Oh, it's so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. They brought Gordo into Kansas City, and he was doing the tour, and he hadn't signed yet. I go, what are you doing? So his agent didn't want me to talk to him one-on-one, and I saw him in the locker room. I said, come here, I want to talk to you. And we went into an empty room. And what are you thinking about? They're offering you $7 million. You want 7.1? What are you doing?
I would have signed in that room right there.
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was drafted, I was a second-round pick. And I've been through the draft before because my brother Ken was the number 1 pick in '66. He's the 4th player taken in the draft by the Red Sox. I know he got $80,000, which back then was a ton of money. Reggie Jackson was the 2nd pick in the draft. So I'm going, okay, now it's 1971. I think I'm going to get about $60,000. And so I get drafted the 2nd round. Scout comes over, Rosie Gilhausen comes over to the house, offered me $12,000. My dad literally threw him out of the house. He comes back a couple days later, and he offers $25,000. I'm thinking I'm getting 50. And I found out the number 1 pick by the Royals that year, a guy named Roy Branch out of St. Louis, pitcher, he signed for $30,000. You can't give the 2nd round pick more than the 1st round pick. But my brother Bobby gave me some good advice. I was pissed. You get the $8,000 bonus or incentive bonus. You get college. Yeah, I'm going to go to college. and so he just said, hey, there's got a lot of money to be made in baseball, and you're going to go to college. And I didn't have any college scholarships. None whatsoever.
Just no grades or?
No, just back then it was hard to get a scholarship.
Yep.
Back then it was hard.
That's crazy.
You had a ton of them, didn't you? You had a ton of them.
Yep.
I mean, I was all CIF, all California, all CIF.
Oh, yeah.
2 years in a row, shortstop.
You're a good player, George.
Yeah. Didn't have one college scholarship. So I ended up signing, got the major leagues, and my brother said, there's a lot of money to be made in baseball. Yeah, my first year I made $14,000 a year. That was minimum salary back then, $14,000.
I remember when we were coming up, the game started to kind of trend in different directions. That was where the guys started wearing the baggy pants, putting it over the cleats.
Yeah.
And you hated it. There was a player that came and you were family friends
Brantley,
with
or what
him.
was his name?
Russell Branyan.
Brantley?
Russell Branyan.
Brandon, yeah.
Russell Branyan.
Yeah, oh, God.
I'll never forget this.
I went crazy.
And he was wearing his shoes or pants over the shoes, and you ended up writing him a letter or something.
And put it in his locker.
Yeah,
put it in his locker.
Because you couldn't
You're
stand it.
embarrassing the game of baseball that I played and loved.
Okay, so now, I kind of feel like that a little bit watching the game today. Were you ever able to get over that hump, or is it still, there's certain things that do bother you, but you're able to weed those out and
A lot
still
of
enjoy
things
the
bother
game?
me about the game today. I love the pitch clock. I love the game. I still love the game. I think there's too much self-promoting. A guy like you used to do the moose thing. You'd go like that.
Yeah.
Okay, you would do the put your backpack on or something. But now, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, this guy's got a podcast now, so it's pretty individualized over here. You know?
So
We're doing it. That's what
wait,
we're
you
doing.
have do you have a podcast too?
I'm on Eric Hosmer's podcast.
Oh, this is yours? Oh, George.
no,
I don't know whose podcast
I
I'm
don't want to
doing.
admit to you that I got a
Okay.
podcast.
I'm a guest just like you.
So
Two third basemen.
I don't like the way guys hit home runs and sit there and stare, and flip bats. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of when guys hit a home run and they get to a base and then they back up 10 feet and then they run again and they jump. And I'm not a big fan of the third base coach and the guy hitting a home run, jumping up and doing a high five. I don't know. I just think the players are too friendly with one another. The teams are too friendly. I don't think the Royals all last year, they didn't have one bench clearing incident, not even close.
Right.
And they haven't had one this year.
That's where
and that can happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
You can't,
14
especially when you lose 106 games in 1 year. You can't go through a season without fighting back.
Yeah, 14 and 15.
You did.
It felt like we fought every other
It was
week.
like every series.
Yeah, at least once.
Every series.
But that was, I guess, maybe like the point of the transition of the game. But like, we also were a family, and like, if anybody did anything to one of us, we're doing it.
Well, you
times
saw
two.
what it was when the guy, who was it, Brett Lowry? Brett Lowry
Yeah.
slid into Escobar.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't even that bad of a slide, but it hurt Esco.
Oh yeah,
It hurt him. And then everybody took offense to it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was
And I
amazing.
don't understand. Oh, and he had Ventura. And Ventura, he
cannon.
he was bigger than life, I
Yeah.
guess. He thought he was 6'9" and he was 5'11". And I remember he got in a little thing with Trout behind home plate.
Yeah.
I think Eaton hit a ground ball to him at first, and he yelled, So he kind of, I don't know, what would you call that personality?
Like easier to dial down more than like trying to get him going. But like you said, Ventura would be the first one if someone throws one behind Moose. The next inning, he's going out there throwing behind
Right,
somebody.
exactly.
We're not waiting.
But then
around.
when Ventura's young buddy Miguel Amante gets called up, and he's from his same hometown in Dominican, and he's got his big league debut, and he gives up a homer to Ian Kinsler. The next day, Ventura's starting, he just plugs him right in the ribs, and he's like, "You hit a home run off my best friend." Now we gotta start separating this little thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where you turn it down just a little bit.
Yeah.
But Ventura, the coolest thing about Ventura was you were seeing a lot of that growth. You were seeing him mature, and he was starting to understand towards those later years. And that was cool because that was kind of our first time of being the older guy going and like trying to help out the young guy. And that's something that was really hard, especially at the end of my career. The younger player that came up was so different than how me and him were at that age. And it felt hard to like connect with the guys, and it felt hard to, really start that bond, because off the field, these guys are doing different things that we do. On the field, it's like baseball is spoken to them in a different language. It's like, hey, see this guy up, this guy's got a slider, and he's like, well, what's his vertical angle or horizontal break?
What's
and I'm
the
like,
spin rate?
What game am I playing anymore? So I
can't even, if there's a baseball article written in a magazine about a player, I couldn't read it. I wouldn't understand what they're saying.
It's a different language.
I have no idea what RWX square. What the does that mean? Huh? And I hate the word velo. Everybody says velo now, and oppo. How about he throws hard and he can hit the ball the opposite way?
Let's just keep this shit simple, right?
And his launch angle. You know what the launch angle is? The launch angle is where the ball hits on the bat.
Oh,
you could swing straight up and hit the ball in the bottom of the bat. You're going to have a negative. You know what I mean? You can swing straight up and hit the ball there, and your launch angle is going to be 150. I know that's too high, bump up to the catcher. But the launch, it just drives me crazy.
I want to hear how you react to this, because first, the iPads in the dugout, obviously not a fan. But the kids, there's guys now that'll come back, they'll hit a fly ball to the warning track, they'll get the iPad and they'll look, and they'll say, I hit that ball at 103 with a 28 launch. How is that not a homer?
Yeah.
Because he caught it.
Because it didn't go over the fence. And that's the rules of the game.
That's how this game is played.
Yeah.
But 3 different batting titles, 3 decades. You obviously had to, I'm sure there was some kind of adjustment, whether it was the lingo, the way the coaches taught. Was there any big changes? And you were just like, no, I'm just sticking to what I'm doing.
I stuck with what worked.
Was there any
people
change?
don't know. I never hit 300 in the minors. I got called up to the big leagues. I hit 290 in rookie league. That got me to A league. I hit 280 in A league. That got me to AAA somehow. And I was hitting 270 in AAA and got called up to the big leagues. I get to the big leagues. My first year, 73, I had 45 at-bats. I hit 125. Playing once a week. Well, when you're in the minor leagues, what do? You play every day.
Every day.
And now you're not playing every day. And now you're playing once a week. And September call-up, basically. And so then I start the next year in AAA, and then they trade Paul Shaw, and they bring me up, and I'm playing third base every day. I'm hitting 200 at the All-Star break with 3 home runs and 18 RBIs. Charlie Lau, my hitting coach, who again had a 210 lifetime batting average, says, hey, I'm the only guy that thinks you belong, and I wasn't good defensively either. So it's every day I get the ballpark and I'm going, I can't believe I'm still in the big leagues. I am some kind of horse player right now. So Charlie says, hey, I think you could play. This is flying home from Cleveland right before the last game before the All-Star game. And he says, let's meet at the stadium. We're off Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, we have practice at 4, and then we're flying to Baltimore. Why don't you meet me there at noon? I said, okay, fine. So we just talked. Did kind of like our little talk that one day.
Yeah.
But we talked for an hour, 2 hours. And he told me things that he thinks I should be doing differently. And he said, I've watched it for 2 months. You haven't made an adjustment. I said, well, no one's ever told me how to hit, ever. Our old hitting coach in the minor leagues was Mickey Vernon, who played with Ted Williams. And Mickey won a batting championship one year. All he did was lean on the cage and tell you Ted Williams stories. That's all he did. He never told you what to do. Our infield coach was Spider Jorgensen. All he did was hit you grounders. He never told you any proper footwork. Never did anything. They would just hit fungos. It's crazy. Nowadays you have, in the minor leagues, I think we have 2 or 3 hitting coaches on each team. Video, they do all that stuff there too. So I stood on the plate, kind of hit like Yaz, everything back leg and kind of, just falling away. And he moved me off the plate, closed me up, and he said, hit everything from the second baseman to the left field line. I want you to stay through, get your arms extended, and have a weight shift. And, start tracking the ball. Man, the All-Star break, I was hitting 200, and we set a goal to hit 250 by the end of the season. With 200 at-bats, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
you got to have a mean second half.
A month and a half later, I was at 250. I'll never forget coming back in the dugout, and I said, Charlie, we're at 250. We reached our goal. He says, fuck you, our goal's 260. I said, you said it was 250. He said, it's 260 now. I got it to 292, 4 games to go. It was a Sunday game in Kansas City, day game, our last home game. They fired him before the game. Then we go to Chicago for the last 3 games of the year. I went 1 for 12. Ended up hitting 282, but I really think I was going to hit 300 in those last 4 games.
Yeah.
I would have hit 300 if he was there.
What was the reason they fired him? Just
Jack McKeon, our manager, was just pissed at him because he was more popular than the manager.
Got it.
He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, God, Hal McRae turned his whole career around. All the pitchers on the team would always go talk to Charlie because Charlie could tell by the way somebody swung, where they stood on the plate, what pitches he could and couldn't hit. So all the pitchers were going to Charlie.
Right.
And he was just getting a lot of credit, and so they fired him. He stayed in the organization because he figured Jack McKeon wasn't going to be around long, so he goes to be a minor league hitting coach. Sure enough, that year Jack's fired. They hire Whitey Herzog. Whitey brings Charlie back. We continued working until he got fired in 79. I think Charlie got fired.
No shit.
Yeah, he got fired because Whitey Herzog was our manager, and we had Clint Hurdle on our team. I think the whole reason was Clint. And Charlie's theory on learning how to hit, you had to learn to hit the ball the other way first. You had to be able to go that way first, and then gradually power would come all the way around. And so, like with me, everything was from second baseman over to left field. And Clint hit a couple home runs in the upper deck of the water fountain when he was 20. I mean, Clint was a big, strong guy. And then all of a sudden, Clint's doing the Charlie Lau stuff, and 2 outs and nobody on. We're down by a run in the 8th inning, and Clint sets a line drive to left field. And it drew Whitey crazy. But that's how Clint was going to get better. He was going to get better. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a funny story. We were playing the Red Sox one time, and it was the bottom of the 8th inning. Here in Kansas City, we were losing 2-1, and Louis Tiant was pitching. And I'm in my hit the ball the opposite field. And you're still pulling balls. Yeah. But it's by accident. You're not hooking balls.
Off speed.
All I'm doing is I'm staying through the ball longer, and I'm getting a weight shift. That's all I'm doing. I'm hitting doubles to left center, right center, and, a lot of that. So Louis throws me a slow slider or curveball down and in, and I'm trying to hit that ball at the second baseman, and I hit a high fly ball down the right field line, and it just fair 2-run home run. We end up winning 3-2. And I come back in the dugout, and I said, Charlie, I swear to God, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pull the ball. And he just started laughing. I swear to God, he started laughing, and he said, You're getting it. You're getting it.
That's awesome.
And that was it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Even here in George, the value of what you're hitting 300. Now, they think average is overrated. It's more valuable to get a walk than a single because you're laying off 4 pitches and you have good strikes. RBI is a lucky stat.
I don't get it.
It's nonsense now. And then now the new one is bat speed. We can tell who the best hitter in the league is because who swings the hardest.
But Luis Arias is an outlier.
And he's the best hitter in the game right now.
You say his name, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. And
he's an outlier. He swings so slow.
10 miles an hour slower than everybody else.
But he gets hits.
But
he hits 350.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people don't understand, you can't quantify everything. Maybe he's got a better approach. Maybe, like you said, he's trying to hit that ball the other way.
He hits the ball everywhere, though. Mostly he hits at second baseman. And I don't think he pulls the ball very much to the first base side, or first base side, or where the second baseman plays him. I don't think he hits many balls there.
I don't think so.
I think he stays through the ball so well. And I think 2 years ago or last year, wasn't he hitting 380 or something in May or June? And the guy from Miami calls up Sam Melliger. Hey, I'd love to do an article on what George talking about 400, because George is the last guy almost hit 400. And the guy called me, and I started laughing at him. I said, "You're going to do a 400 article in May? Give me a break. Give me a break. And call me again in September.
Yeah.
But don't call me in May. I mean, that's just stupid.
It's nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
And it was easier back then, back when I did it. It was easier.
Yeah.
It was easier, and it was easier. I'm not taking anything away from Ted Williams. Probably the greatest hitter of all time. But when he hit it, guys were throwing 13, 14 inning complete games. When I did it, guys were throwing a lot of complete games in 1980. There were maybe 12, 13 complete games a year for your number 1, 2, and 3 starter.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you get one guy, one guy might throw 2 complete games all year.
Yeah.
One team might have 5.
Maybe.
And
crazy.
What the Royals did in 14 when they had those 4 guys, I think baseball saw the importance of that.
Yeah.
And everybody's doing it. So now a really good hitter is going to face the starter. The number 1 or 2 starter, if you're hitting 1, 2, 3, you'll probably face him 3 times. The number 4 or 5 starter, you're only going to face him twice.
Correct.
Because if you got a lead, they're getting them out of there.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're going to take them out, and because everybody's loaded up their bullpen now. So it's going to be harder to hit 350, 360, but still, you got to have more guys in baseball hitting more than 300.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is just, I think 8 guys last year in all of baseball hit 300.
Don't you think, though, also, because that is a debate that a lot of players say is, the hitting's harder nowadays because the stuff is way better. But to me,
the stuff is, why is it better? Because they throw harder?
So this is the velos
they throw
up
harder.
there.
The harder they threw it, the better hitter I was.
Right. So
The
that's
softer they threw it, the Tommy Johns of the world and the Scotty McGregors of the world and the guy Steve Stones of the world that threw 88 miles an hour, the Mike Boddickers of the world that could pinpoint and break stuff off.
Yeah.
And then you get the guys that like to have the little sandpaper in their glove and scuff it and the ball go, every time a ball's the ground now, they throw it out. They throw it out.
Yep.
They check their fingers, their glove every inning.
That's why I wanted to ask you.
Come on.
Because the guys now, if you
Why
say
is
the
the game?
stuff.
Why is it so much harder to hit now?
No,
Because
I'm
guys
not
are
saying it. George is out on
Come
me
on,
now.
Austin.
No, I
Talk to
don't
us.
get it. I don't get it.
So this is what I wanted to ask you. So if people say that, it's because the stuff is better. The guys are throwing harder and all that.
Harder doesn't make it. What makes it harder to hit is movement on the ball.
Right.
You know.
So now you have catchers that are literally setting up middle because they're just like throw the ball over the plate, and then like you said, you don't have those guys that can pinpoint. So to clarify my statement on this, hitters like yourself, it's a different adjustment. It's a different game that you're playing. So like. That's why I wanted to hear what your side of that argument was, because I don't believe in it. I think that certain guys like yourself, that whatever era you're playing in, you're going to adapt to that era. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to hear. I'm definitely not saying.
You know, it's not because. Put it this way: I don't think hitting's harder because they're throwing harder. Because I anticipated the guy's best fastball every pitch, anyways.
Yeah.
I think the game's harder because these guys have so much more data on these guys. Oh, he throws 23% four-seamers, 18% two-seamers, 22% sliders, 2% sweeper. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And his whip is 136, but when there's two guys on, it's 010. Yeah, I don't.
They tell you.
I think there's too much information,
Yeah.
I think guys go up there hitting now with all that information that they have. They go up there and they think rather than react. I think that's a big difference in baseball. I have never seen so many called fastballs right down the middle for strike three, because they're saying, "Well, God, he's with two strikes, 82% of the time he throws a sweeper." And the guy throws a fastball right down, and you can't do it.
To that point, actually just listening to you speak, it's really neat to hear like the greats in many sports, how they talk about their approach to their sport. The Tigers, the Jordans, George, they simplify it. They make it so simple where everyone else is trying to overcomplicate things. And you've said so many just golden nuggets on your approach to hitting. For someone watching, what are your basic principles to hitting?
The longer you watch it, the better you're going to see it, right? So the longer you watch the ball into the catcher's glove, the better you're going to see it. The better you see it, the harder you're going to hit it, right? The harder you hit it, the higher average is. Higher average is, the more money you're going to make.
That is now debatable. I hate to say that.
And
that is now.
And there's one more to it, but I don't want to say it. And the more money you make, the more you get.
Happily married now.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
The happier your wife is.
There you
Right,
go.
right.
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly.
You can add to that one.
Exactly.
I want to go back to something. We were talking about Esky, Lowry sliding into Esky, and then the bench clearing brawl or whatever. There's a play with you at third base, and was it Nettles?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that a little bit? Because
Well, it was the fifth game of the
This
playoffs
is
in 78,
unbelievable.
77 or 78. I'm not sure what year it was. And Guidry was pitching for the Yankees, and Hal was on, and I was hitting third, and I hit a line drive over Mickey Rivers' head in center field, and came in, really close play at third base. And we had it was a great rivalry. There was a lot of tough slides and stuff. And I slid in kind of hard. It was going to bang, bang play. So I slid in kind of late, and as I slid in, I hit the bag, and I popped up, and Graig just put the tag on me. My arms came up and pushed him back, and he steps back, and he just kicks me right in the face. I'm like this on the ground, because after you slide, fall forward, you're like this. And I go, what the fuck was that? And I look up, I get up, and I just, bam, smoke him right. Getting a big fight. Benches clearing brawl, first inning of the final game of the playoffs. No one got thrown out.
No one got thrown
No
out.
one got thrown out.
Nobody got thrown
The only
out.
thing the umpire said to me when I was getting dusted off and everybody went back to their dugouts, you say one word to him, you're gone. And they told Nettles, you say one word to him. And Graig and I were great friends. We were great friends going into that game. I think we were a little bit of friends afterwards, but not as much as before.
Yeah.
You know?
Same with the umpire. And the umpire, when you came charge of home plate, you were good friends with that umpire.
I was great friends with all the umpires.
Was it Tim?
Tim
Lloyd?
McClellan.
Tim McClellan.
You had to be good friends with the umpires at third base.
Yeah. No, I'd walk up to home plate every day that first at-bat. I'd go in there and dig my little hole in the back line. I'd say, how's my favorite umpire doing today? And the catcher would go, yeah, right. And the guy would say, yeah, right. And then I'd get on first base. And I'd get on first base and I would say, God, I can't wait till tomorrow. You're the best ball and strike umpire. And the first base will go, yeah. Then I'd go play third base and I'd tell the third base umpire, you know, you always go over, the third base coach comes over and says, hi, how you doing? And I'd walk over and the third base umpire would be there, and I'd say, that was the best ball and strike game I've seen all year. And the third base coach would go, and after a while, they're all going, oh, shit, here we go.
Yeah. I thought you did a hell of a job
Guys
last
like
night,
Carlton
man.
Fisk, who caught so bad. I played against Carlton for 15, 18 years. I did it all the time. And he'd call me Jorge. Hey, Jorge. And I'd go, hey, how you doing? Everybody called him Pudge. I called him Carlton. I go, hello, Carlton. How's my favorite umpire doing today? He goes, fuck you, George. Hey, I would walk in. Well, you know where their locker room is in the Kauffman Stadium?
City? Yeah.
I would go over there 20 minutes before the game. I'd knock on the door. They'd go, come on in. And I'd stick my head in. And you ever see the movie Airplane?
No.
Airplane
I
with,
think I have, yeah, a
the
while
crazy
ago.
one.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's in
Yes,
it, Roger,
yes.
and Leslie Nielsen's in it, and Leslie would open up the door to the pilots and say, hope you all have a good flight. And I'd knock on the door and I'd stick my head in and I'd say, hope you all have a good game tonight. And close the door.
Oh, shit. You'd be suspended for 3 weeks.
Oh,
if they
yeah.
found out you did that.
There's like security guards near the umpires' doors now.
So what do you think about Angel retiring?
You know what? Angel had some very, very bad calls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I said this the other day. I feel like there's a good 5 to 10 umpires in the league that are worse than Angel right now.
No.
Yes, I really, really do. Angel, like, he cared. He tried to work with you. You would talk to him. You would definitely get some questionable answers back, but he definitely cared. The young guys now, you can't say anything to them. They bow up to you right away. So, I don't know, man. But I tell you what, Angel is the most famous umpire out there because everyone's talking about it all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Joe West, those guys.
Cowboy Joe?
Those are probably the two
So
most
did
famous
he
ones.
actually retire, you think, or Major League Baseball and him just get together and say, look, we'll fill your sack full of money and one of you, here's a horse, go right off in the sunset.
It's probably best.
You think
for
that's
both
what
of us.
happened?
Yeah.
Because I don't think he was going to retire. And didn't one time he tried to sue Major League Baseball?
Yeah, he sure did. And that was what caused a lot of the people or attention why people know about him.
Yeah.
And
because he was a minority, or is because he was never selected to be in the World Series?
He never was.
and crew chief.
And
Or no, he
crew
was.
chief. He never got crew chief until recently, and then he was never in the postseason or World Series.
Right.
Wow. Well, it's kind of like baseball. You know, it's Super Bowl. It's the NBA. Hey, if you're on a good team, you go to the World Series. Mm-hmm. If you're a good umpire or a good official, guess what? You probably get to go to those things. They're not going to let the worst rated referee in basketball do the
Biggest games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think.
Speaking of umpiring, I think Haas had something about the pine tar with you.
Yeah.
Best.
Oh, so Timmy?
But what you would always tell us was that was the best moment of your career because you then became the pine tar guy.
Right.
Instead
Before
of,
that, it was the 80 playoffs when I had hemorrhoids. I went to a proctologist. We were in New York, and I told our trainer, Mickey Cobb and Paul McGann, and I go, God, I've got something wrong with me, you know. Got a pain down below. And next thing you know, they look at it and they go, oh my God, you got to go to the doctor. So they said, you got really bad hemorrhoids. And so we go to a doctor in Philadelphia. This is 2 days, the day before the World Series. Tell you, it was one of the funniest cartoons I've ever seen in my life. In the proctologist's office. It was like a photo taken from inside, and like on the door, proctologist was backwards, you know, because it was a glass door.
Got it.
And it said proctologist. And when you walk in, it would be right, but when you're looking at it, it's backwards. And so you're sitting there, I'm sitting there waiting to get in, and I'm looking at the wall, just all this stuff. And there was a picture, that picture. There were no couches. It was like everybody was in the subway, and they were holding on to it. The room was packed, and everybody's just standing here like this. There was no couches to sit on. I started laughing so hard. So the proctologist says, "How old are you?" And I said, 27. And he says, "What's your diet?" And I said, "Yeah, not good." Well, what do you, what's your schedule? All these questions. And have you been under any stress lately? And I go, yeah, I just tried to hit 400, and we just beat the Yankees, and now I'm playing in my first World Series game tomorrow. And to be honest with you, I'm scared to death right now. And he says, "Well, you got a bad diet. You've been under a lot of stress. You don't take care of yourself. You're a perfect candidate." But the hemorrhoids were that's what I was known as everywhere I went after that series. Every on-deck circle on the road. I mean, I heard every hemorrhoid and butt joke there was. It was just, after a while, and I never, when fans would get on me on the road, I never questioned. I never turned around and challenged them. I just pretended like it didn't bother me, which it did. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. So I just ignored it. And man, day after that Pine Tar game, our next game on the road, I was the Pine Tar game. I never heard another hemorrhoid joke the rest of my life. And now thanks to you, now I got, well, it's like sometimes I have to remind people, I was the guy with the hemorrhoids. Oh, shit. Two types of people, man, those that have had them and those that have.
What if you would have went on the road?
I got them. Wait till you get them. Call me when you get them.
Put that evil.
When you get them, I want you to call me.
I will. I definitely will.
George. So we fly home after the first two games of Philadelphia. We lose the first two games, and I fly home, and I couldn't sit in the chair. I got the whole front row, and I went right to the hospital, and they cut me open, stitched me up and stuff. I'm sitting there, so we have an off day. And obviously I didn't go to the workout. And then the next day, it's like noon, and I'm still in the hospital. I don't have a car, I have nothing. And I'm not married, I live alone. I mean, how am I supposed to get to the frickin' game? Nobody even thought about that.
Oh, shit.
So I called up Al Zeke at the stadium. I go, Al, he was the old equipment manager, one of my best friends. I said, Al, how am I supposed to get to the game today? He says, what do you mean? I said, I'm still in the hospital, I don't have a car. The Royals I haven't talked to anybody on the Royals, so he got Mickey on the phone, and they sent a clubby come pick me up at the hospital to take me to the stadium.
For a World Series game.
Yeah, World Series game.
Unbelievable.
And I was packed, man. I had so much packing in me and gauze and stuff.
Oh, I bet.
First at bat, hit a homer.
Yeah, you did.
Of course you did. Yes, you did. Of course you did.
Yeah.
Of course you did. Pulled it. Sorry for pulling it. Next year we got
exactly.
Big reunions coming up next year.
Oh my God. Are they going to do it the same week?
Hell yeah.
That would be, well, if they could double the
I think we're doing both of us.
Yeah.
at the same time.
I think
that will be a blast.
It's going to be awesome.
Oh my God. I mean, just playing in the I-70 series in May or June was unbelievable. I couldn't imagine playing those guys in a World Series.
Yeah.
That had to been nuts.
Well, it's funny. Friday, didn't get to watch you guys play, and you guys were at my house Thursday night for a cold one, and I left Friday morning, drove to St. Louis for Whitey Herzog's memorial, celebration of life, and Jamie Quirk and I drove. We were the only two Royals there, and we were trying to think of some of the guys that were on the team that, if they even live in the area, not many of them do from the '85 team. But I got there, and a huge gathering of people, and probably 20 of the 25 guys on the Royals World Series team, Cardinals World Series team were there. And I never met Todd Worrell. He was their closer. He was the guy. He came up to me, put me in a headlock, and he says, he was safe he was out at first, I go, yeah, I do now. But, I saw John Tudor. And I never said one word to John Tudor. I never said a word to Tommy Herr. Never said a word to a lot of those guys. Danny Cox was there, and I didn't realize he was like 6'3". And I'm going, God, this is pretty cool to actually meet these guys finally.
Yeah.
After playing against them 39 years ago.
Yeah.
Never said a word to any of them.
Wow.
Any of them.
Dang.
So it was kind of cool.
That is cool.
That is badass.
And then their equipment managers there. I never met their equipment manager. Their traveling secretary was there.
Travel.
Yeah. One guy said, yeah, I do what Jeff does.
Travel there. That's the best way to relate it, I tell you. So that was one thing Moose and I, and I'm sure you would love this, Moose and I always picked up from you and tried to bring it over to other guys, and especially the younger guys, but you with the equipment managers, the support staff, you mentioned one of them being your best friends. You treated those guys like gold.
Al Zeke.
Yeah, and just tell like the former or the current players today, I feel like they need to know how important those guys are and what they do. And that's something that we learned from you. So I know you're passionate about that.
Al Zeke he was my equipment manager when I got there. He didn't do the travel, but he just sat in the locker room. We didn't have spreads after games. We'd have a keg of beer and some potato chips. After day games, there was watermelon. We had fruit punch in spring training, and we had hard-boiled eggs, fruit punch, and celery sticks for breakfast. If you didn't, so we'd go out and eat a lot because you never got fed at the park.
Right.
But I just developed a really good friendship with this guy and all the clubhouse kids. We'd have clubby days, at my house, barbecues, even in spring training, when I was there with you guys. We'd have clubby night. I'd take them all out to Ocean 44 or Mastro's or whatever. Then we're gonna have them over the house for a big barbecue and stuff. And then the guys from the Cincinnati Reds started coming over. All the clubbies from them too. And I'm feeding them all, but it was fun. It was fun, and I just love them. I have a great relationship with a bunch of them still that are no longer there. I mean, one of the guys that was Tim Burke is my travel agent, and he was a clubby back when I came up.
No shit.
So it's kind of cool, and I still tip them. And in fact, I haven't tipped them for this year. I'll tip them when they come back from the road trip. But I still tip all the guys and love them. They make your life easy, don't they?
So easy.
Take care of those.
They make your life
you.
easy. I mean,
So
my son Jackson loved being a clubby. Loved it. He absolutely loved it.
That was
fun.
Jackson was there with us.
Jackson was with us.
Were you there the day he fell asleep down the first
was.
baseline?
After his 18th party, or what was after his birthday
after his
party?
graduation party. He fell asleep down the right field, ball boy down the right field line, the ball hit him.
Davey set up a fake press conference there to answer
it was
questions
great.
and all
It was
that.
great.
That was hilarious.
But he absolutely loved that. He loved being a clubby.
Badass.
I actually have a question. As we were talking about the changes in the game on field, from the information and all the technology, there's a part of the game that the fans probably don't know about inside the clubhouse. And I'm wondering, even if all of you, as you've played the game for as long as you've played in the big leagues, did the clubhouse end up changing? Guys going out together versus staying in? Is it the unity aspect? Sometimes the older players will see like this younger player generations come in and they're just different. Did you all see that?
There was a couple guys that took me under their arms. I had my 21st birthday in Boston after a day game. So a bunch of the older guys, Freddie Patek, Buck Martinez, Bruce Del Canton, I think Nellie Bryles, a couple other guys took me to some Mexican restaurant. We had a bunch of margaritas and stuff, and I showed up the next day and I didn't feel all that hot. They said, "Welcome to the big leagues." One of those things. And guys, like when I got sent down from Fort Myers one time, our minor league camp was in Sarasota, and I had no car. Jamie Quirk had no car, so Freddie Patek rented us a car because I wasn't old enough to rent a car. So he rented us a car to get down there. So those guys taught me, to kind of take care of the younger guys when I got to the big leagues. When Jamie got to the big leagues, he lived at my house. And then Clint Hurdle got called up. He lived at my house. Pat Sheridan lived at my house for a while. Brent Main lived at my house for a while. Billy Buckner got in a little argument with his wife. He lived in my house for 5 days in a row. Wore the same shirt every day. I said, "Buck, you can wear one of my shirts today if you want." He says, "No, I think I'm going to stay. I think Jody's going to let me back home tonight." Sure enough, after the game, he'd say, "Can I spend the night one more night?" I think it was 4 nights in a row. And then, when Zach came up, I knew the type of guy Zach was. When I got called up to the big leagues, the Royals told me, "You got a room at the Radisson Hotel downtown for the homestand." We picked up your room. I didn't even know where the stadium was. I didn't have a car. I think the first day I got there, I took a cab to the stadium and a cab back to the hotel. I wasn't 21. The next day, somebody drove my car up from Omaha. I had a 1969 Volkswagen bus. That was my car. Hell yeah. Wish I still had it. And so I drove that to the stadium the next day. I didn't know anybody in town. First time ever here. Knew a couple of guys from spring training, but I didn't know anybody else in town. But nowadays it's different. And I didn't think Zach was the type of person that would survive by just, here's your hotel room.
Right.
He was single at the time, and so I invited him to stay at my house for the first homestand, first month, whatever. And he lived with me the whole year. And I loved it. And my kids loved it. My kids loved it. So it was great.
It's a lot of kids come up to the big leagues rich now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they have their group of friends outside of the stadium or outside the field that come with them and stay. We were talking about the other day, some of the best times, I mean, obviously in Kansas City in the big leagues, but some of the best times were in the minor leagues because it's everybody there. No one's, everyone's alone. So like, it's all of us. It's 20 guys out at night having a good time.
Right.
And like, guys couldn't afford to bring their families. Guys couldn't do that certain stuff they did in the big leagues.
Yep.
So that was like some of the funner times we've ever had.
Yeah, riding on the buses overnight, 6-hour bus rides, 8-hour bus rides.
Yeah, just
all
getting
in-
a cooler.
There's a lot more
Getting going.
camaraderie in the minor
Yeah,
leagues.
you're sleeping on the floor of the buses.
Never got into Nintendo?
No, never did. Never did. I was the happiest guy in the world when my kids had Nintendo when it broke. And then a friend of mine got him a new one for Christmas. I'm going, no, you dumb shit. I hate Nintendo. My kids would all be scratch players right now if it wasn't for that stupid game.
Nintendo, huh?
Because I lived a mile from Mission Hills, the entrance where the kids grew up. And I used to go over there in the summer and hit balls if I wasn't going to play. And I'd say, come on, you guys want to go play? Go hit some balls. And they were probably 6, 7, and 8. Dad, it's too hot. And they'd just go downstairs and play Nintendo all day.
Drag my son to the golf course every day.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to make my kids because they're really going to hate the game if you make them do it. So,
Right.
But I wanted them, and I think you know this now, that if you started playing golf when you were 8, 9, 10, 11 years
yeah.
old, it would be, it's so much, you're so much better
Yes.
at age 40.
Absolutely.
I'm still trying to figure it out at age 71.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Just trying to hit consistent shots all the time.
Sure.
And had I have started at like 8 or 9, like I wouldn't be thinking all this stuff. I would have already had.
And like my kids are all members of country clubs now. And,
Yep.
and they play and they get frustrated. And like Jackson was in a tournament yesterday. He shot 46-33. 46. Par's 30, 35. So he was 11 over on the front
2 under.
and 2 under on the back. I said, what happened? He said, the front nine, it was like, I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And then the back nine, it just
Clicked.
I hit a good drive and I buried the first hole and he said, okay, there it is.
Yep.
And then I guarantee on the front nine, he's going like this. Okay, I got it.
Yep.
And you start doing that, like in hitting, you can't do
when
it.
you get in the box and all you're thinking about is where my hands are supposed to be.
Yeah, and then you can't see.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
That's the biggest deal that I think, when you think and try to think and hit. The only thing that you should think about when you're hitting is just seeing the ball. Just see the ball.
How did you, because I bought into it when I went in San Diego, they tried to get me to pull the ball in the air, and I tried to do it.
All you got to do is take your top hand off, asshole.
I love you, Dad.
That's all you had to do.
How did you never buy into to new stuff? You just, you had your simple fundamentals you stuck with, and all the other bullshit.
Nobody ever tried to teach me anything different because I was so successful doing it my way.
Right.
My last year, I was at 40. I went my last 20 at bats. I think I was 2 for 20, and I ended up hitting 268, I think, and led the team with 19 home runs and 75 RBIs. And I thought I was the worst player in baseball.
No shit.
And I quit. I retired.
I would take
But you know what happens? You know what happens to guys is like when you watch TV and you're watching Fox News, hopefully, and the next thing you know, the ticker tape's going below, and you're sitting there watching, and all of a sudden you start reading the ticker tape, you don't understand what they're saying. So if you're up there and you're thinking about where your hands are, where your stride is, and what your hips got to do, and whatever, guess what? You ain't going to pick up the ball. Mm-hmm. So you work on all that bullshit stuff in batting practice, and then once the game starts, forget it. You see the ball and hit, and hope all that work you did in the cage pays off, because you cannot think and hit at the same time. Yeah, it's impossible.
said you've never seen so many O2 heaters being called
Right
for strike
down the
three,
middle.
and that was, I'm sitting here saying my elbow's got to do that.
Yep.
Oh,
See ya. Yeah.
Oh,
Bye ya.
that didn't work.
Bye ya.
That didn't work. That didn't work.
I've worked with some elite shooters, and they were just talking about in the military, just sharpshooters, snipers, and a couple of them said some things that you just said. They said, one guy said, he says, where the mind goes, the body flows.
Yeah.
He goes, it's like wherever your mind, so being very smart about where you put your mind, and also he said your eyes are your window to your mind, meaning that hey, if I control your eyes and where you put your eyes, your mind's gonna go there. And so I just thought that was very similar to what you were saying.
Sure.
Yeah, just the importance of the eyes.
What was there ever a time you almost got traded, didn't sign back with Kansas City?
Yeah, there was 19 after the 81 season. Ewing and I had a little disagreement on a contract matter.
That's Kaufman, right?
Yeah. He said I had some stock options in his company that were told to me that as long as I was with the Royals, those options are mine. And after the 81 season, when we went on strike, he was kind of pissed off at baseball. And it was told to me that way. Unfortunately, in the contract, it wasn't written that way. So my contract was from 77 to 81, 5-year contract. And so as a result of that, by then I'd signed another 5-year contract. But he was going by that contract, and I had 10,000 shares of Marion Lab at 15, an option to buy. They're mine. Well, I could buy them whenever I wanted. Well, he told me they were due, and I said, no, they're not due. And I basically called him a liar. And that year, the next year, Whitey Herzog was in his second year in St. Louis. I ended up going to a World Series game there. And there was a lot of speculation that year that Ewing had had enough of me, and I was going to get traded to St. Louis. And
Holy shit, what a plot twist that would have been.
Wow, and it didn't happen. But
Thank goodness.
Holy.
But I heard it was a pretty good trade.
Really?
They were going to give up a lot for me to go over there, but I already had Whitey for 4 or 5 years, and he saw he saw me, you know, and he saw me when I was 23 years old and 22, 23, and become the ball player that I became at that time. So
That would have been nuts.
that was really the only time. Early in my career, I almost got traded to the Reds. I was living out in Southern California, and there was an article in the LA Times one day during baseball winter meetings that the Royals and the Reds were going to make a trade, me for Tony Perez, because the Royals wanted a guy to drive in runs, and the Reds wanted a young third baseman.
Right.
It's crazy.
So that would have been kind of
been wild.
playing with
Big Red Machine?
back in the heyday. That was 74.
That would have been nuts.
Yeah.
That would have been.
All right, George, last one, because again, like we said, Moose and I have always idolized and looked up to you. So being a new father now, you got any new advice for me now, especially now that the playing days are over? I got no routine at the house right now. I'm just home all day, just figuring out what to do.
Well, you're gonna have to get out of the house.
I need to get on the
I
golf
know when you were
courses.
in the minors, when Moose was in the minors, you might have saw me wherever you were playing for 3 or 4 games. I had 3 kids under 3, and I would go into Herc Robinson or back in the day, and I'd say, hey, send me to Omaha, send me to Wichita, send me to anywhere for 3 or 4 days. I got to get out of the frickin' house.
So just leave.
I mean, keep doing your thing so you can always pack up and leave for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But, my dad, I was scared to death of my dad my whole life. He was not a good human being. He was mean. He didn't know how to show love, very physical. And I woke up one day about 2 or 3 years ago, and I told my wife, I said, my dad was really a f***ing asshole. Because whenever I used to talk about him, I always cry. I'm not crying about him anymore. I mean, you go to his funeral and you find out you have 2 sisters you didn't even know you had that were 35 years old. Give me a break.
That's wild.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the shit that he did. Mm-hmm. But he always told me that I'm not your friend, I'm your dad. And I don't agree with that. You can be your son's friend, but you still got to be his dad. And I think my kids and I have a wonderful relationship. I take them every year to Vegas for the Chiefs-Raider game. We play golf 2 days. We go to the game. We go to casinos together, and we have a wonderful time. I never did anything like that with my dad.
That's awesome.
Never. I don't think I ever laughed with my dad. Just the two of us in the car or two of us anywhere. I don't think I ever laughed. I was always scared to death of him.
Yeah.
You know?
I have a similar relationship and being, a little frightened of my dad coming up, but now kind of looking back and the way we bonded in high school and looking out after the fact, as an older person, as an older adult now, I think I appreciate so much more of what he was trying to instill in me and what he was trying to teach me.
Right.
And I think it's the same way, not the same way, because we did enjoy being around you and hanging out outside of baseball, which, that goes without saying. But again, man, I cannot tell you how much we appreciated you, how much we love you, and what you've done for me, Moose, and all of our careers.
Well, I'm getting
here.
back to one more thing about my dad. I'd look at my brothers, and there was a lot of friction always. But he raised 4 boys, who are all very successful. And I know there are dads that were really lenient and kind of overlooked everything their kids did and never punished them, never hit them or anything like that. Back in the day, you could get away with bopping your kid once in a while, if the kid deserved it. And I just know a lot of guys that are a lot smarter than I was, better athlete than I was, whose dads weren't that way. And then I look at where they are now and where I am now. So my dad was a perfect dad for me because I probably would have walked all over him if I had the opportunity.
Yep.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a little discipline, I think, is good. You got to let them know who the boss is, but I think the same time you could do what my dad never did, is show some love. And that's what I've done to my kids.
It's awesome, man. We might have to sneak into one of these Vegas trips. one of these days.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
That's where my mind was at. I was like,
Pretty good. Little Shadow Creek.
I'll be at that game. I'll be with you. Yeah, but you can just tell that you do such a great job with your boys because they do love you, and you can tell, like, just being around them, how much fun they have being around you.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that ever since the first day. I met all your boys. So it's
Well, it's funny. It's Sunday night, and usually they come over every Sunday. Jackson had to leave town to go away on business. Dylan's coming home from the lake, and Robin's here. So I asked my wife before I came over here, are the boys coming over for dinner? She said, usually every Sunday night they come over for dinner.
That's awesome.
And if it's not Sunday for some reason, Chiefs have a Sunday night game, it's always Monday.
Find a way to do it.
Yeah,
once
but
a
we
week.
try to get together once a week as a family.
That's awesome.
And that's fun. It's fun. We always have a good time.
Hopefully we start finding ways to get together more than
Yeah, more
once
than,
every-
I'll
whatever
see you
it
next
is.
year for sure.
Well, next
For during
year,
the reunion.
Yeah. Hopefully
Chiefs,
this year in
Chiefs
October.
Raiders game in Vegas, we're there.
Yeah.